Hello y'all on YouTube, this is Rob from Rob's Nerdy Knives. Today I have a very special review, if you will, impressions that I'd like to do of the exclusive CJRB large Feldspar. This right here is the large Feldspar in red fat carbon. As you can see, I don't know if the lights do it justice, but that red fat carbon has beautiful reflection in the carbon fiber. It just looks gorgeous. And this is also titanium with a deep mill titanium clip, and the blade on this one is, if you can see this, is an M390 blade steel, which is really a nice premium steel. This was a surprise because when I ordered this, I thought this was going to be just a regular sized knife, but this turned out to be a large Feldspar, so I wasn't sure if I would like it. It is a flipper, it does have thumb studs, and I do like this a lot. I'll just give you a little spoiler. I really like this knife a great deal. So let's get into this. So this knife right here was an exclusive that I got through White Mountain Knives, and I believe they're on sale right now for $179 as of this video. So if you're looking for one, they have three other colors. I believe one is blue fat carbon and the other one is like jungle fat carbon. So if you wanted to check those out, please do. It looks like this is stone washed, very nice stone washed. I do like that a great deal. The M390 blade steel is really nice. Now, as if you know any of my videos, and as you know, if anything that I do, I use my knives. Everything I collect in my collection that I have and that I keep is something that I use. I don't collect knives just as safe queens, and except for one, which was my dad's knife that he bought before World War II. So yeah, that has a little history, and obviously it's very old, and so my sons would like to inherit it as well when I pass away. But so it has some meaning, and that's like the only knife. The other ones, they all are very enjoyable. I like the knives, but they are collections that I like to use and enjoy. And if not, then I will sell it or give it away as a gift or something like that. So anyways, this is a pretty large knife. Now, if you compared this to, like, I thought it was going to be about the size of the Pirate, which I happen to have over here. So here's the CJRB Pirate. This is their exclusive limited edition from Artisan Cutlery directly, and this one right here is the S35VN steel. Really nice knife, but as you can see, this is a much smaller knife compared to this one, and I thought they'd be about the same, but they're not, because this is the large, which is, you know, turned out to be a really nice little gem. I really enjoyed that a great deal. The action on this is just fantastic. I really love this. Now, what I did do with this one is I put in Skiff cage ceramic bearings. I did do that right away, and that was a lot of fun. So I put those in, and it certainly made a nice knife even nicer. And you can see the action is fantastic. The flipping is great. The detent to me is perfect. I did tune that a little bit. You know, people who like really strong detents, you'll like the way it comes out of the factory. If you're not a big fan of super strong detent, a very mild tuning really made this knife perfect as far as I'm concerned. So that was really nice. The fat carbon is great. It is contoured, if you can see that. Let's see if we can get that up close. Definitely a contouring on there. And you can see the titanium back here. It's milled. I don't know if you can see that. Just beautifully milled. I really do like that. The screws are T8s for the pivot. Everything else is T6s, unfortunately. But you know, if you've got a good quality tool set, that shouldn't matter too much, right? Get yourself some WIA. The little WIA screw and the WIA bits work really wonderful. I do recommend that. Spend a little extra. Don't buy the cheapest thing. And make sure you seat your screw into the Torx screws really well. And you're perpendicular. You're straight in. You're not at an angle and moving around, so that you have best contact with the screw when you loosen it and tighten it. And don't, you know, obviously don't ever over tighten. You need some Loctite 242 to keep your screws in there if they start to loosen up, especially for pivots, which is typical. That happens with a lot of knives, especially if you use them. So, you know, Loctite 242 would be something maybe you might consider for your, you know, maintenance kit, if you will. You should have a little knife maintenance kit if you collect knives or have a lot of knives or use a knife very regularly. I highly recommend that for safety. There's a lot of reasons for that, but anyways, so this large Feldspar, anyways, it was a White Mountain Knives exclusive. I got the red fat carbon because I can carry it on Fridays when I wear something red that I do to support the U.S. military and U.S. troops. I like to do that regularly on Fridays. I know some people don't care about that. I do. To me, it means something because I have family in the military. I support the military in many ways, even in my job. So I really believe that that's important, right? I want to support those who protect us. So I like that. That was absolutely a benefit to me. And this red fat carbon, they did an outstanding job. It's really smooth. I mean, there, you can see a little bit of stuff in there, but it's not terrible. I had some RGT rips, I think Ricks or Rips Garage Technology. I put on my Shaman. I love those scales. They're more pitted, but I don't mind that because on the Shaman it actually gives it, I think, a little texture. It gives it a little grippiness, and that's a really hard use knife for me. I like my Shaman a lot, and I use that a lot. So that to me was a benefit on that one. But this one is really nice because this makes it a very much a gentleman type knife for me. But it's a large one. There's no doubt. You can see the blade here. Definitely a large stock blade, flat grind all the way down, comes to a nice thin edge. Really, really like that. I like the stone wash. The flipper I find is really nice. There's no jimping on here, but the angle and the way it's placed, I don't miss it. There was a Ray Laconico Kaiser exclusive that had this, and it worked really well, but on that one, because of my bigger, meatier fingers, smaller hands, I think it worked really great on. But mine, they kind of slipped off because it was so big. But this one here, no problem at all. I mean, it's definitely a light switch. You could push button it for sure, which I just did right there. If you can see that, push button is when you push down and it comes up. But the light switch works really well here as well and deploys very, very aggressively and strong and solidly. The thumb studs work wonderfully, reverse flick and front flick. I like that a lot. The lockup on this here is fantastic. I believe that's about 50%, if I can see that maybe. I don't know if we can see that. Let's see if we can get in there. I think it's, well, maybe more, it's like 50. Yeah, it's about 50%. That's what I would call it. So I like that. I like that a lot. What else? We talked about Skiff bearings. Really, really wonderful. It's got a deep milled, deep pocket carry clip and milled titanium clip. I really like that. It's great. Tension on there works perfectly. It's just over the, as you can see right there, it's just over the, not necessarily on the frame lock part that actually holds the blade, engages the blade, this bar right here. It's over on the rest of the scales. So, but it is a little bit over here as kind of an over travel stop, but not really, because where it would try to be an over travel stop, this is where the cutout is. This cutout is very, very nicely chamfered. There's no sharp edges. I really appreciate that. There is an over travel stop here and a steel insert, so we'll show that right there. You can see the steel insert right here. That engages the blade, so it's not titanium to steel, which allows for replacement easily and also wear less. And there's the over travel stop that's right in there, so you don't push it and bend it out too much. Now, when you tune something, I have videos on this. You're going to have to disassemble the knife and take the over travel stop out to adjust your detent pressure. If you're one who is inclined to tune your knives. I am, and I'm comfortable doing it, but I also do it very gently, very slowly, very carefully. If you're not willing to do that, I wouldn't recommend it. This is my personal opinion. But if you're a careful, meticulous person, I think, it's something that's pretty easy to do and relatively successful for I think, a majority of folks. The first time is always a little nerve-wracking, so I recommend, if you've never done it, find a cheaper knife, one that if you make a mistake, you're okay with. You don't want to do it on a really, really fancy knife if you're not sure about it, not comfortable yet. But this right here, I'm very comfortable doing it now, so this was not a problem, and made this knife perfect. All right, let's get into some details about the knife. So first thing we want to do is probably weigh it. So let's weigh this little knife right here. All right, we got ounces, and here we go. So it's 3.68 ounces. So that's not bad. 3.68 ounces with titanium and carbon fiber. I like that a lot. All right, I may have edited that part out where I hit the camera and bring you back here, so I apologize if I did. But so we weighed that. It was 3.68 ounces, and let's do a little measurement on this. Now, you can see, kind of get an idea from these right here how long it is, but I'll get my ruler out. So the blade itself is going to be, well, from here, from the tip to the base of the handles or the scales, we're looking at 3 and I would say 7/8, 3 7/8 of an inch. So almost just under 4 inches, right? So that's the blade length. And then if we're looking at the cutting length, we're looking at 3 1/4 inches. So 3 1/4 inch, no, sorry, 3 3/4 inch, not 3 1/4, 3 3/4 inch. So it's a 1/4 inch shy of 4 inches. It's a pretty big blade, which is nice. I like that. The handle is It's just 5 inches. Now, where you're going to actually get your hand in and your grip for where you move, about 4.5 inches. So definitely, I find myself plenty of room here, plenty of room. And I have medium to large hands. They're large widthwise. They're medium in lengthwise because they're kind of short, stubby fingers, but medium in lengthwise, large in widthwise. So this would be a large grip. And so I think someone with extra large, even double extra large hands, this is definitely a good knife. Now, when I grip this knife, and I grip it hard right here, there's no hot spots with this milled titanium clip. So that's really comfortable, and I can even choke up a little bit. Now, you got to be careful because this choil is, I think it's more of a sharpening choil, but you could choke up if you had to do a precision cut. I would just recommend holding back tight. There is no jimping on top, so when you do that, you got to make sure your other finger right here is really aggressively holding your fingers from slipping forward, right? So use the ergonomics and the geometry of the knife to protect yourself if you're going to do a choked up kind of cut. If you're not, then, right here, this would work just really nice with a nice push cut. So I think you would enjoy that. The blade and where the flat grind goes, the thumb studs theoretically are out of the way if you're going to cut this way. But I mean, it could get in the way if you decide to do a straight cut, right? So if you're doing a straight cut and you go up, the thumb stud would be in the way. But if you're doing sort of an angle cut and you come up, theoretically they would be out of your way. I like this a lot. It is curved all the way, so I would call this just a drop point, typical drop point type of blade. Like that, the flat grind goes all the way up to the top here, but then it flattens out up here. There's no swedge on this one really. I mean, I guess you could. It's not really a swedge because swedge is supposed to be not where it's level. It's supposed to be angled in. It's supposed to come in on the top. So there's no swedge on this, but it's such a thin blade, and we'll measure that next. So let's take a look at that. All right, let's get our measurement out here. We'll zero up. All right, so here we go. So if you can see that, we are at 0.127 inches. So it's 127th hundredth of an inch. All right, so it's 120 hundredths of an inch, 0.127. So almost 0.13, almost 130 hundredth of an inch. So, that's pretty thin for such a large blade when you think of how long this blade is. And that blade is what also makes this nice and drop shotty because the weight of the blade allows it to really kind of fall on itself. And as this breaks in more and more, it starts to drop much, much better as over time. And I have a feeling it will. This is one of those knives that I have to force myself not to always carry because I really do enjoy this. I like to do some shorts of different knives that I have, and I find myself doing more shorts of this one and the blades that I really do enjoy a lot. And I don't want to be repetitive, but I know sometimes I try to mix them up a little bit and show a little different aspects of the knife, the grip and how it works right-handed or left-handed, because this one, very easy to flick left-handed as well. And right up here, I found that using the deep carry clip, very easy to reverse flick. And I think, is this the one? I think I can also, yeah, I think I can, with not too much pressure on there. I can also reverse flick. That's typically something lefties deal with, and if you like to use your left hand, because when you put your hand here, the pressure, there's a little detent ball that's in here on this actual bar of the frame lock, and it'll fill in, and you can see that detent ball. It'll go into a little hole that's on the blade when this closes. So I don't know if you saw that. When we open this, you can actually see this right here. There's a little space between the bar and the blade until the detent ball falls in to where it's supposed to be. And then you see it drops. And that's where it's no longer extended out, where the detent ball then rolls on the blade. And there's a detent track. And that's where I will use like KPL heavy or nano oil 85 weight to oil that part. And then I'll use the regular oil, the nano, I think it's 15, and then I think KPL 10, I think it is, their regular oil. No, is it 15 KPL? I forget. Anyways, I can go look at it a little bit, but that is what I use to oil the cage ceramic ball bearings in there. So I do believe in oil. I always think more oil is better than no oil because, I'm in Texas, it rains, it gets humid, and I don't want my knives to rust, even though this is M390, which is a very corrosion resistant, keeps the sharp edge really a long time. Should be relatively easy to sharpen. It's not like S110V or 90V, S90V, which is harder steel or was it Maximent? Those are all much, much harder steels and harder to sharpen. It's pretty easy relatively to sharpen. I mean, it's not as easy as something, like a 1095 or 1098 stainless steel. Those are incredibly easy to sharpen, but they also don't retain their edges a long time. But this will. This is definitely a super steel. Definitely centered. Yep, it is centered now. I think if it looks like there's an illusion that it might not be centered, I don't know if you can see that. That is because I think the blade grind, when they did this in the factory, is not perfectly symmetrical. So when I sharpen this, I'm going to try to see, I don't know if you can see this, but I think the tip, let's see if I can get really close here. I think the tip it's a little more rounded over this way, and this one's a little straighter. So that gives it the illusion, I think, that it's not centered. But when I look at it overall, I think it's very well centered. So I did have, at first, I did realize I had to put a little extra Loctite to make sure I keep the pivots in place. I haven't checked that lately to see if they've slipped, because I've been using it quite a bit. And when you use a knife quite a bit, that's very possible. Your pivots could slip, especially as it's still breaking in and expanding and adjusting, and everything settles on the knife. It literally will settle. And what I mean by that is, there's places where it may not be flat or flushed yet. Like, for instance, you have this milling right here, and some of those milling points, you could have a little part where it's up a little bit, and then maybe it flattens from the pressure of the screw and the use, even in the compression of the carbon fiber, which carbon fiber has some flexibility. It's not like crystal. It's not perfectly hard like a diamond. So it will have some flexibility, and there's some compression that will occur in there. And depending on how you settle it and take it apart, that's really important as well. So anyways, this is a great blade. I really do like this. I highly recommend this. I think there's so many positives about it. If you want a larger knife, if you're looking for a smaller knife, this might not be for you. And if you have smaller hands, this is probably definitely not for you, unless you really just like giant knives. This would be for you. If you have larger hands and you like larger knives, I think this is absolutely worth your consideration. I like larger and smaller knives for different occasions. And so this one was a real joy to find and run across, and now to have. I like this knife a great deal. So that's my recommendation on this one. I think it's a really neat exclusive. I'm glad CJRB is doing more than just their budget ones. I like their budget knives. Trust me, I have had the Pyrite budget, the Lago budget. Those are great knives, and I will probably have one of those in my car as a car knife, just to have a backup knife. Really, really like that. So great knife for that. Let's take some close-ups. I know some people sometimes want to see the knife a little bit closer. They want to see the scales and see what that looks like, see the screws, and then we'll look here at the non-show side, the frame lock side. You can see that, the pivot. There is a lanyard hole. It's not prioritized. I like that a lot. The deep carry, it's going to be about that deep. That's what you're going to be showing out. So it's relatively small. For the size knife, that's really nothing. And it's pretty high. I mean, you can see it's a 2-screw deep carry pocket clip, I guess, attachment, or the way it secures. So let's look at the blade. This is the flat grind. As you can see, that stone washed, very nice. I think I do like that. Not a whole lot of show stopping, or what do you call it, billboarding on the knife. CJRB, which is typical, and it is smaller considering the size of the knife. It could be much larger. Trust me, I've seen some knives with really large CJRB, like they're billboarding on the highway. And then minimal over here, you have the part number, very small, and the M390. So that's really, really nice. I like that. I did disassemble this. I did put Skiff cage ceramic bearings in there. Worked really, really nicely. Highly recommend that. If you go to Skiff's and you buy Skiff's, this is actually listed in his little spreadsheet already. I confirmed it and just let him know that, Steve, this is even better. I've done a few of the other knives that I've come across that were new, and he's had a chance to add after I do the video on those and confirm that those Skiff bearings work wonderfully. 99% of the time, you upgrade to Skiff, it's like it makes the knife better. I mean, there's a few really high-end knives. They already have fantastic bearings in there, and putting a Skiff cage ceramic bearing is not going to make it worse, but it's not going to necessarily add anything to it, right? It's not going to add the benefit like most of the other knives will have. So I do recommend that if you haven't tried Skiff bearings. Like if you have a Andrew Demko 80-20.5, get Andrew Demko Skiffs for that one. That is night and day on the action on that knife. Highly recommend those. So anyways, that's my summary wrap up of this knife. If you have any questions, if there's any comments, like feel free to leave them below. If you have any questions about the knife or my reviews or something you'd like to see me cover or talk about, I'd love to hear about it. And we can obviously incorporate that in the future. If you found this video entertaining, valuable, or just something interesting to listen to, would you consider subscribing and hitting the like button down below as well? And if you like my video and content, would you consider also maybe hitting the notification button as well for when I release all my other content? And again, if you like this content, check me out on Instagram at robs_nerdy_knives. That's robs_nerdy_knives over on Instagram. Hey, thanks so much for watching today, and have a great day and a great week. Bye.